Hi, I'm Jeff from Arturia. Welcome to our presentation on the V Collection. The V Collection is 23 vintage instruments plus Analogue Lab. So it's a collection of legendary instruments. We were just listening to the Matrix 12. I'm going to kind of start with the acoustic and electric mechanical instruments, so the piano, the electric pianos, the organs, and the Mellotron to begin with. But this workshop is to kind of go through all the instruments, introduce you to the instruments, as well as talk about some of the different uses that they could be used for. So one thing to start with, these instruments are classic instruments, so everything from grand pianos to modular synthesizers to vintage polyphonic synthesizers, things like the Sinclair and the CMI, some of the famous 80s digital instruments. Most of these instruments ordinary people can't really afford to buy. Even if you're able to buy one of these and have it at home, you may not have the space to have very many instruments. So the V Collection is really a great opportunity to be able to play some of these classic instruments. There's advantages to using software as well. If you're working in a DAW, you can save all the settings. If you're working with a controller keyboard, you can automate parameters. You can have hands-on control. And just gives you a lot of flexibility that you wouldn't have even with some of the original instruments, because a lot of these instruments don't even have MIDI, so there's no way to really interface them with the computer for control except just recording the audio outright. The V Collection comes with more than 8,000 presets, so each instrument has between a couple hundred and over 500 presets. So there's a lot of sounds to get you started with. Maybe we should just dive right in and start with the piano. So Piano V is a physically modeled piano. You actually have 12 different pianos. So we've got the American Grand here, but we have a Japanese Grand, a German Grand. We even have things like a glass piano or a metal tine piano. So we can kind of see some of the different pianos we have here. And because it's physically modeled, it's a lot lighter on your hard drive space. So if you're using a sampled piano, you're probably going to have like a gigabyte up to 10 gigabytes of sample space used. This won't take up very much space on your hard drive at all, so it's a lot more portable. And then other advantages to physically modeled instruments is that basically, rather than having recordings of each key, they're modeling the whole instrument, and you have things like being able to change your mic setup, having room settings, having the lid open or closed. And through these, you can just get a lot of nice versatility. You can also use the piano for layering with other instruments, tweaking some of the parameters so that it will kind of fit nicely layered with strings or other instruments. I'm going to go a little bit quickly through these electromechanical ones so we have a little more time to spend on the analog and digital synthesizers. So the next instrument is the Clavinet. This is another physically modeled instrument. So this gives you a lot of control over the sound, plus you've got some effects. So you've got a Fender Twin, you've got some stomp boxes, you've got an analog delay, a chorus, a compressor, flanger, auto wah. this will give you some of the classic clavinet sounds. I'm not a great clavinet player, so I will probably quickly skip to the next instrument. Here we get into the Fender Rhodes. So we have the stage and the suitcase. This is the stage instrument. So we, with the stage, we have both the pre-73 and the 74 and later models. So there's two different models there. All of the V Collection instruments have an advanced panel as well. So here you've got really fine-tuned controls of being able to change the tone bar resonance, the pickup distance, the tuning, alignment, the damper. So these are things that you'd physically have to get in and alter on the real instrument if you wanted to, and then it would be hard to make those changes. So you'd probably make a setting once and leave it that way. But this gives you a lot of flexibility to have different types of sounds out of a piece of software, and it sounds great. Going on to the next instrument, we have the Wurlitzer. So this is a distorted preset. Let me open up the interface. And this is a Wurlitzer 200A. So I like the subtleties of playing it really softly. So again, you've got a lot of foot pedals with it, some amps and pedal controls, and you've got the advanced panel, so lots of possibilities for nice tonal control. And the next instrument we have is the Mellotron. So this is a really famous tape-based instrument. So for each of the keys, you actually have a recording of the original tapes from the Mellotron. The Mellotron would literally have a tape for every key. And we have all of the factory libraries that came with it. And then you even have the ability to create your own instruments by importing samples into it. So it's just a really beautiful instrument. It's been on a lot of recordings over the years. I think Beatles' Strawberry Fields is one of the most well-known examples of the Mellotron being used. So we've got a flute sound, but you've got choirs and all kinds of different sounds that come with it. It's just a really beautiful instrument. Then we have the famous Hammond B3 organ. I've got a little bit of a strange fading in sound. And here we've got effects pedals and convolution reverb to help you shape your sound. You've got the 9 drawbars as well, so if you want to play those in real time, you can. And then we have 2 more organs, so we have the Farfisa. And this is another kind of dreamy, strange example of a Farfisa patch. And here again we have the advanced panel, so you can set some envelope settings, some EQ, tone, and you've got foot pedals as well, so chorus and delay and phaser, overdrive, flanger, and a nice little amp. And our last electromechanical instrument is the Vox Continental. And here again you've got some vibrato and reverb and background noise and key contact age, just to give you a lot of the variation in sound that you would get with different physical instruments. And so now we're getting into the analog synthesizers. So one of the most famous is the ARP 2600. So you've got a 3 VCO voltage controlled oscillators, 24 decibel per octave voltage controlled filter. You've also, so you've got the original filter from the ARP 2600, but you also have a filter from the educational version, the ARP 2500, which is a 12 decibel per octave low pass, band pass, high pass, or notch filter. And in addition, you've got the 1601 sequencer. So just a lot of great history here. It's exciting to hear that Korg and ARP are going to re-release the 2600, but if you're not one of the few people that's able to get one of those, or if you don't have the original, then this is a great way to get into the ARP. Yeah, I mean, we could spend quite a bit of time here. The ARP's great for not only, I think bass sounds, it's probably one of my favorite synthesizers for making bass sounds, but you can make great percussion sounds, great lead sounds, and what's fantastic about the V collection is that you can play this polyphonically. So, you know, the ARP is a monophonic instrument, but software allows us to do things like play pads with it, and so that's one of the nice advantages to using the software. The next up, we have one of the newer V collection instruments, the Buchla Easel. So, and again, this was a monophonic instrument, but I'm going to play it polyphonically. You can play up to 4 voices. So here we've got really well modeled the complex oscillator of the Buchla, the modulation oscillator, the low pass gates. You've got a 5-step sequencer. We've got the cables that are color coded. So yeah, if you don't want to spend $4,000 or $5,000 or more on a electric music box easel, then this is a good way to get into it. And the next is probably my favorite V collection instrument. So this is the CS80V, so it's a recreation of the Yamaha CS80. So the CS80 is a kind of unique synthesizer in that you've got 2 oscillators, but each of those voices has its own envelope, amplitude envelope, filter envelope. Each voice has its own low-pass filter and high-pass filter. So you can essentially have 2 sounds and layer them, and there's a layer control for that. and just gives you the opportunity to have like a lot of really beautiful sounds. So there's also the ribbon controller. And then we have one of the other really famous polyphonic analog synthesizers, the Jupiter 8. Here we've modeled the two VCOs and the cross modulation and the low pass and high pass filter, and we've also added a Galaxy editor. So this allows you to have additional two additional LFOs and a visual editor, as well as a step sequencer and some effects. And you've also got these voice effects. So in between the oscillators and the filters, you could have things like a ring modulator, chorus flanger, distortion, phaser. So that's something really nice to experiment with. Next up, we're kind of going through the selection of the most famous polyphonic analog synthesizers. We have the Oberheim Matrix 12. Yeah, this is just a recreation of the famous 12-voice 2 VCO Matrix 12, which has 15 different filter routing types. It's just a really beautiful synth. Highly recommend checking it out. This preset cliff spat is part of our Aphex tribute pack that was done by one of our sound designers, Lily. So I recommend checking that out too if you have a V collection already. And the next we have the Mini V3. So this is a pad sound. So this is a recreation of the Moog Mini Moog, and just like the ARP 2600, this originally a monophonic instrument, but you're able to do things like play pad sounds. We've added some advanced features too, like additional LFO, some motion recorders, so you can record some automation, modulation effects. And now we have the Modular. So This is a recreation of a Moog Modular. This can have 9 oscillators. You can patch everything freely, just as you would from the real analog synthesizer. You've got a filter bank. You've got envelopes, VCAs, delays, chorus. So it's quite a beast. Got quite a few presets, so you can don't have to worry much about learning how to use it yourself if you don't want to. But if you want to get in there and patch, there's quite a lot of possibilities to use this for. And again, you can use polyphonic sounds or play this polyphonically rather than monophonically. And now we've got the Prophet 5 and the Prophet VS. So the Prophet V is kind of a hybrid instrument. It's taking the famous Prophet 5 and the Prophet VS and giving you both of those in one instrument. So here you see the VS. And this is kind of giving you analog synthesizer, the Prophet 5, and a digital synthesizer, the VS. So the VS was one of the first, if not the first, digital wave synthesizer. So the VS stands for vector synthesis. You have these 4 quadrants. Let's see if I find her. So you can use the joystick to kind of fade between the 4 different tones. You can automate this with envelopes or through your host as well. The VS just has a really unique sound, kind of aggressive, lo-fi digital sound, but a really nice, beautiful sound. And next up we have the Oberheim SEM. So this is a 2 oscillator analog synthesizer with a multi-mode 12 decibel per octave voltage controlled filter, which you can modulate through the from a low pass to a band pass to a high pass filter. We've added some effects like overdrive and chorus and delay into it. And we've added some additional envelopes and the ability to add to better control the filter and whatnot. So and next up we have the ARP Salina, which is a string synthesizer. Yeah, we've really well modeled the Salina. It has captures the sound of the original. So there's an analog chorus or phaser, digital delay, And next we have the AKS, the EMS Cynthia AKS. So this is I think from 1972, just one of the really classic little suitcase synthesizers like the Buchla, where you've got a little keyboard, 3 oscillators, patching matrix, 2 envelopes. So one's a parallelogram or a trapezoid envelope, and ring modulator. Just a really great synthesizer. This is one that's quite nice as well because you can play it polyphonically. So let's see. So I didn't really talk too much about the browser. Pierre, one of our product managers, did a live stream on Analogue Lab last week. Even though Analogue Lab comes with vCollection, I think because Pierre did such a great job, I'm not going to talk about Analogue Lab in this presentation, but you can, just to go over the browser quickly, you can sort by your favorites. You can sort by different types of sounds, so you can pick a filter and then a style as well. You've got all the, if you bought any of our preset packs, you can sort them here, or if you have user presets, they would show up here as well. You have the factory library and all your other presets you may have for that. And our last 4 instruments are the digital synthesizers. So the first one is a recreation of the Fairlight CMI 2X. And so this is a famous instrument in that it had a screen which you could use with a pen to edit things, and we've recreated the what would show up on the screen in the operating system of the Fairlight. So here you can see we also expanded the number of sounds up to 10. I think the original was, actually I don't know what it was less than 10. So you can use it for sample playback. You've got a standard 2D waveform display, but you can also sound you've got a whole host of parameters to edit. It's a great way to do lo-fi sample crunching. So if you want to get the sound of an old 8-bit or 12-bit sample, or you can actually use the bit depth here to go anywhere from 16 bits all the way down to 1 bit. I think we're not editing this sound, but if you're importing drum samples, you can use this to kind of get a lo-fi drum sound. You can change the sample playback rate like anywhere from 44/100 to all the way down to 2100. You can set some, you have a high pass filter and a low pass filter. So you can use this as a great kind of lo-fi degrader of your samples. In addition to that, we've got the R-page sequencer. So this is kind of the famous 32-step Fairlight CMI sequencer and mixer. And then this is where you would map your samples over the keyboard. Yeah, you can also do resynthesis. So if you take a sample in, you can analyze it, and you can use the built-in additive synthesizer to resynthesize the sample. So a lot of possibilities, fun sound shaping tool. And next we've got the Casio CZ. So this is so you've got two lines. These are kind of like oscillators in analog synthesizer, but this is kind of a simple. It's using phase distortion, and basically you have these two operators, or a carrier and a modulator, and you can select the different waveforms, and then you can use this to basically fade between the two sounds. And you can modulate this, and then you can layer the two together. And this gives you a lot of really nice sound shaping controls. We added some new types of envelopes as well. And there's a modulation matrix, which gives you like just a lot of sound shaping possibilities. So you can select what your source is. So one of the macros or an envelope, and then you can select destination, and then you can basically adjust the level that you want to, how much you want to modulate the parameter. So yeah, great instrument, the Casio CZ. And next up we have the Yamaha DX7. And so the Yamaha DX7 is a 6-operator FM synthesizer. Some of what we've done is giving you more waveforms to use as in the operators. So the original was just sine waves, but you have 25 different waveforms that you can select from. So all of these kind of classics plus some new waveforms as well. We added some new envelope types. So there's a delay attack decay sustain release, and then you've also got some multi-segment envelopes, so you can basically go in and draw envelopes however you would like, and this gives you a lot more flexibility, a lot of potential for modulating parameters that didn't exist in the original version. And effects, so you've got four effect slots where you've got phasers, flangers, analog delay, chorus, etc. Maybe we should just listen to a few sounds. And our last synthesizer is probably one of the most famous unattainable synthesizers, the Sinclair. Let's take a listen. So the Sinclair allows you to do both FM synthesis and additive synthesis. The original had, for additive synthesis, 4 partials. So we increased that up to 12. And if we get into the editor, then you can see these are basically all of the partials. And you have a kind of a timeline here, so you have you can actually set different values for your partials, and then they'll morph from value 1 to value 2, and you can have lots of different. For each partial, you can have your own timeline. And then you can even resynthesize a sample, so you can load a sample instead of having additive synthesis. You can resynthesize a sample, and then once it's been resynthesized, you can also manipulate those partials the same way you would if you just hand draw them in. So that is very quickly the V collection. And I think now we'll take some questions. So our first question was, can we feed one synth into another synth, like filter sound from the Jupiter 8 through the Mini Moog? So in some of the synthesizers, like the Buchla or the Mini, you can route audio into the filter. So yes, we're able to do that on some of them, but not all of the instruments. So question 2, how do you set program change? So you can use in the preset browser, let's see, let's open. Then you can use the playlist feature, which is down here in the bottom. So you could basically add some presets to the playlist, and then you'll be able to use program changes to step between the presets that are in your playlist. But you have to set the playlist up in advance. Question 3, is there any way to activate or toggle the sustain without using a MIDI sustain pedal, especially for piano V, but it could be cool if it applies to every instrument. On piano V, you have a sustain button at the bottom of the interface. I'm not sure about the other instruments. I think we're getting ahead of our questions a little bit, so I can't see your questions, but someone's typing them in so that I can see them. So also related to the sustain pedal, some of them also have a hold button, which is tied to the MIDI control change sustain message. So those may be preset up so that you can already use a sustain pedal that's plugged in. One thing I wanted to tell you guys a little bit more about the sound packs that we're making. So Pierre got into this a little bit, but I'll show you as well. So in Analogue Lab, we have a store, and a lot of people aren't aware of this, but we're actually every month releasing 2 new Analogue Lab V Collection preset packs. So if you notice over here, you've got a little store icon, and then you've got all of these preset packs available. So basically the new ones will show up at the top here. So Blush Signature and Savage Trap are the newest preset packs. Granular lead and granular drums are pigments. So because Analogue Lab is kind of the front end for not just the V Collection, but also pigments, all of your presets will show up here. But it's a nice area. You can also go into it'll allow you to preview some of the presets without buying them. So you can always kind of check out the pack, and you can even control the macros like you would when you had purchased the preset pack. So if you haven't checked out the sound packs, be sure to give that a try. We have a Analogue Lab free trial and a Pigments free trial right now too. So if you're thinking about buying V Collection or Analogue Lab or Pigments, now's a great time to download them and check them out, and you can use them, I think, until the end of June. So it's started back the beginning of the month. It's a 3-month free trial, which will end at the end of June. And I think if we don't have any more questions, that will be it for today. So I'll leave you with a little music. Thank you for stopping by and spending some time with us, and please stay safe and healthy out there. Thank you.